13th, 2026. I haven't made a mistake on a check yet this year. Town of Estes, yeah, cursed myself. Town of Estes Park board meeting is now in session, but somebody stole my gavel. So whoever took my gavel, bring it back. For anyone who would like to stand with us and say the Pledge of Allegiance, you may do so. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll move on to the agenda approval. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda as written? Seeing none, I'll take
Mayor,
them.
we would like to request that the board pull consent agenda item 7. That's the resolution 0426, contract with Madison Mechanical Inc. for on-call plumbing services up to $100,000 budgeted. The contractor has found a mistake at the last minute, and we did not have time to correct it for the packet, so we would like to bring that back at a later date.
Which item is that?
Number 7 on the consent agenda.
Oh, okay, got it. Consent agenda, okay.
And as well as the executive session, Mayor.
Yes,
We would like to remove that one as well.
okay.
I think we should have that.
Can I have a motion to approve the agenda with those two changes?
So moved. Second.
And we can move forward with the vote. The agenda passes with item 7 removed from the consent agenda, resolution 0426, and with the executive session canceled for tonight or postponed. And we will move on to the public comment section. This is for public comment for items not on the agenda. Any public comment on quasi-judicial items must be reserved for the appropriate public hearing. Does any member of the public request to speak on a non-agenda item? And I notice I forgot to bring my cool little timer out that we've been experimenting with, but you know, it's been 5 weeks between meetings, but that's okay. We'll keep tabs on the 3-minute time limit. Please provide your name. Thank you.
John Guffey, 561 Chapin Lane. I just want to recognize this week being the First Peoples Festival that will be held in the Activity Center. And to me, it's very important that this community embrace the ideas presented at this event. There's a lot of wonderful things, costumes. There will be not just costumes, but a whole variety show of dress and dance and booths with artists from around the country. I do want to raise one concern, which I think is appropriate this week as we approach this festival for all of us. And my understanding of FIRST is a concept, and it's a term that may be used to represent people, or a particular kind of people, whether that means tribal people or indigenous. I challenge the word indigenous as a reference to a particular kind of people. For I believe, and I think it can be represented quite adequately, that all people are indigenous to the earth. This is our home. We live on this earth. And we should represent this earth in our conduct of civic and personal and spiritual responsibility. So I believe that this community should attend the First Peoples Festival, believing that they, each of us, all of us, are part of whatever that concept of first means. We are the first people. We're the only people. And all of our brothers and sisters of every species, every small celled organism.
One-
It shares
1 minute
this
left.
responsibility. A minute left?
1 minute left.
Great. I think that's all I have to say. But there is this placement of Estes Park in a kind of first location, receiving the blessing of the national park in the riverbed that flows through this community and down through into the valley below. And I think it stands in conjunction with First People. And we have a responsibility to represent what is presented this week as a festival, but hold some very important acknowledgments to all people, all animals, all beings that are our relatives. Thanks.
Thank you. Other public comment for items not on the agenda? And I see none. We will move forward with town board comments and liaison reports. And Trustee Eigel, you are up.
Thanks, Mayor. I have no report.
Thank you. Trustee Lancaster.
I have nothing.
Thank you.
Bill stole it.
I feel complete again.
I saw who did it.
Ah, okay. Trustee Lancaster. Oh, no report? Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Sinek.
Just one. Actually, Business Park met. Kirby's gonna give that report. And I attended the candidate forum this week. When is the deadline for candidacy?
26th.
Oh, we're gonna do that. Good. I encourage people to run. Everybody always asks me, how horrible it is and all that kind of stuff, and it's not horrible. It isn't. We have our times and our certain topics that are not the best, but in general, it's a very rewarding experience. I attended as a outgoing trustee, so it's always a little bit more relaxing. So then when the candidates get all nervous, so it's kind of nice not to have that nervousness. But don't be nervous and run. The more people that run, the better outcome we'll have. So I encourage you, if you're even thinking about it within town limits, to at least look into it. Yes, it is time consuming, but it is very rewarding. So please consider it.
Thank you. Trustee Youngland.
Thanks, Mayor. A couple items tonight. The sister cities met last week, and they have filed their application to request the park over by the Moraine Loop to be named after Monteverde, our sister city. And so they are hopeful that all can go smoothly and that can get done. So we're anxiously waiting on that. And ROAC, which is the Regional Opioid Abatement Council that I sit on, we won't be meeting until Thursday. So I don't have an update on that until next time. Lastly, I want to take this time to formally announce I'm going to be stepping down from town trustee. And it's due to family reasons. And I wanted to make sure that my seat was listed on the ballot. And so I'm giving my formal announcement tonight, and I will be vacating my seat March 24th. So that's all I'll say now. Thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Hazelton.
I'm going to save my comments about that for a later date. But I will echo what Marie said, and I know Jackie's going to give an update, but really want to encourage people to consider running for this seat. It's a privilege to serve up here, one that I've personally really enjoyed, and I think Cindy would share that. I think all of us would share that sentiment, but it serves our community to have a diverse slate of candidates, so please consider running. And any of us, I think, are happy to answer questions at any time about the seat. I hope folks will consider joining the slate. I have a couple of things. One, restorative justice. I just want to publicly thank all those who supported the Better to Go dinner back at the middle of December. It was a great night. Thank you to Rob and Julie Pieper. They always support that dinner like they support a bajillion other things in our community. And it was a wonderful evening to see a lot of familiar faces and meet some new folks. So very strong support for the organization. And I just want to thank people for participating in that. And then our next meeting is on Thursday, this Thursday at 9 a.m. And we'll be reviewing the 2025 annual report and have some the board will be having some continued discussion about strategic direction for restorative justice and their role moving forward. So really good conversation happening from that group. I really enjoy sitting in and listening in on that. As Marie mentioned, a few things for Visit Estes Park. In December, we did adopt the 2026 budget. And also at that meeting, we put in place the parameters for the newly formed Marketing Advisory Committee. And that is a requirement, as a reminder, per the updated IGA between the town and the county and Visit Estes Park. So expect to see applications for that advisory committee coming soon. And I really hope people will consider getting involved in that as well. Purely advisory capacity, great opportunity for people who have background in marketing, business ownership, want to be at the table to talk about how we are attracting and engaging guests in our community. So more info on that to come. I also wanted to thank Jerusha Rice. She has been on the board for several years, and she is stepping down from the Visit Estes Park Board due to the fact that she's moved out of the local marketing district, so she's no longer eligible to serve. And I just want to thank her for her years of service and her support for Visit Estes Park. She's brought a lot to the table, and we're very appreciative of her time and energy. We meet for January this Thursday at a new time of 1:30 to 3:30. Those meetings are online, so anyone can hop on and listen in. And the current agenda items include selecting officer positions for 2026. We'll get some updates about 2025 marketing highlights. We'll get an update about the Dark Skies initiative. And then we will also be reviewing a letter regarding the National Park Service's new non-resident fees. It's been a hot topic in the tourism world. We discussed that a little bit in December, but we'll be reviewing a draft letter for the board to consider signing at the meeting. And that's all that I have tonight, Mayor.
Thank you, Trustee Brown.
Well, I want to start by thanking Trustee Youngman. She's really a class act. She worked hard to make sure that her position would be determined not by appointment, but by the voters. And also would like to echo Trustee Hazelton's, it'll be difficult to find, enough people, maybe, to run to fill these seats, because now we have to fill 4 seats. So I do encourage you to run. It's a very incredible experience to be up here, scary at times, but nonetheless, it's important for our community. It's important to find those people who will be thinking far ahead, because really a lot of the decisions we make are long-term, even though the office positions are fairly short-term relative to it, particularly when we talk about some of the infrastructure issues, whether it be, flood mitigation, fire avoidance, housing, all of those things. We're making decisions on this group that will affect 10, 20, 30 years from now. So we're looking for somebody with that long-term feeling of looking for the long-term and what's best for the long-term. And once again, Trustee Youngman, thank you. You are a class act. There, just one report as liaison. Housing Authority meets tomorrow morning. It always meets the day after the first, the second Tuesday of the month. And as a result, I never have a report for them, except I do know that they're in the process of finalizing the move of the offices. They're currently in the U.S. Bank building, and they're going to move to Skyview, which is part of Fall River Village. So I think they've worked out all the kinks and all the issues about how to get this done smoothly, and that will be happening soon. So if you have need as a member of the public, remember that they're going to be moving soon and might not be in the same location they were in before. So With that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, run, run, run. It's like when we had the most recent November election with a couple of ballot initiatives. My encouragement was not to vote one way or the other, but to vote. I wanted to get as close to 100% as we could. I think we had 40%. 40% okay if you look at trends in other towns in Larimer County, but I would have much preferred a higher turnout. You get the best representation of the community mind, and the same thing is true if we get enough people running. Let's get a lot of people out there. We have the best choice then that we give to the community to do that. I did not have a public service career before I started this less than 2 years ago. Well, it was January of 2024 when I put my name in after retiring from the hospital after 18 years over there. So my career was operations, management, information technology, all that good stuff. But my career primarily was listening to people and then trying to make things better, or at least keep things in good shape while trying to make things better. And that's what we're up here to do, is to keep the quality of Estes, keep Estes beautiful, keep it safe, keep the infrastructure. We're here to guide the policy that keeps the staff in a position where they can do all of those things. So yes, I highly encourage that. I will be at the First Peoples Festival. I was at that last year. I am going to attempt to dance this time. I watched closely last year, but it's not just as the public commenter said, it's not just as a festival. It's a very uplifting and spiritual and philosophic thing when you're there. It's a very powerful event in its different ways. So I'll certainly be at that one, plan to attend that. I know we'll make a lot of comments in the coming months about Trustee Youngland. I'm losing my right hand and my left hand here. You know? Things will change. We could have a dramatically different board. We'll see how the whole election plays out. One way or the other, the community has the opportunity to shape the future by choosing from those different folks. Trustee Youngland has always spoken from the heart, and she's spoken intelligently from the heart, so it's a combination of the brain and the heart. She's got a lot of experience, a lot of great, great history in this town, and we'll pour more on as we go through the next few meetings. So thanks for the service that you've done. We can move on to the town administrator report. Mr. Mahalik.
Thank you, Mayor. 2 items tonight. The first, this is our first meeting since December 9th, and I want to recognize all the efforts from our power communications team relative to those December 19th and 20th wind event-driven power outages. That was an incredible wind event. Our power team had somebody approach them up on Marys Lake Road who was a little bit higher up and said that their home weather system recorded a gust at 120. Whenever the power poles are snapping, especially brand new power poles, you know it's going to be a long night, and our folks are out there in very challenging conditions trying to get power restored. I want to thank them for all their work, as well as the crews that came up from the city of Fort Collins to help us get power restored, rebuild that double circuit along Marys Lake Road, and also our streets and our parks crews that spent a lot of time cleaning town up from the other effects of that, from debris in the roadway, trees down, branches in town parks and property. A lot of work went into responding to that event, and appreciative of staff's effort there. Secondly, I want to pass the mic over to Town Clerk Williamson for an update on our municipal election this year.
Thank you, Travis. As was noted, we did hold a candidate forum, and wow, I'm short and this feels really short, so I'm gonna, so you all can hear the next people after me. We did hold a candidate forum on January 6th. We had about 6 packets picked up there, just so the board and the community knows, and then we've had 1 additional packet picked up. We have 1 official candidate at this time, and that is Bill Brown. And so we are looking for those additional petitions, hopefully to come filtered in. We do have extra packets available, so if anyone is listening to this and is interested after hearing the discussion tonight, you can pick up a packet in the town clerk's office. It is due, the petition itself is due back in our office on January 26th at 5 p.m. So if you have 10 really close friends that will sign your petition and they live inside town limits, that's all you need to run. And so come see us and get a packet of information. Happy to meet with anybody who has questions about running. They can just call our office or stop by, and we will be happy to give them that information. Wanted to just kind of highlight a couple key other dates while we're talking about that. March 16th is going to be the last day that you can become eligible to vote in this election. As a reminder, it is an all-mail ballot election. So all active registered voters with the state of Colorado who are town residents, live within town city limits, or town limits, will receive a ballot in the mail. And then that is also, March 16th is also the first day those ballots will go out in the mail. So people can start looking for them, and then they're due back by 7 p.m. on Election Day, which is April 7th. So we wanted to kind of get those key dates out there. Again, if anyone's interested in running, we were happy to give them a candidate book and go over that information, and that date, January 26th, 5 p.m. We hope to have some additional petitions. Any questions from the board or anything else you'd like me to highlight? Perfect. Thank you.
And as I mentioned, I was a newcomer to town politics, so I've been here 22 years and very familiar with a lot of the issues. In my work at the hospital, I had a lot of interchange with the town. The town has had the opportunity to watch me grow into this position. It is a very fulfilling type of position. You feel very, very useful. You feel that it is your obligation to serve all, regardless. It is a nonpartisan position. You feel the obligation to listen to all voices, and I've worked to do that. I've made mistakes along the way. People are point them out to me when I don't notice them first. Usually I realize I've stepped in something at the time and do a lot of self-correction, but I really appreciate it. I got a call today in the middle of the day about one of my recent columns and took me a little bit to task for some of the things that I said in there. And as I listened to her, I thought, she's right. I'd probably change a few of my words along there. And so it's a work in progress. But if anyone has questions about it, I'm incredibly approachable and try to be very available. I'd be happy to talk to folks who are teetering on the edge of deciding whether to run or whatever direction somebody's coming from. Feel free to reach out. We'd be happy to get you information, Q&A, as much as you might need to make that decision. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. I will read it with the one item removed. I'll read it in full into the record. Item 1, expenditure approval list, bills. Item 2, town board meeting and study session minutes dated December 9, 2025. Item 3, Planning Commission minutes dated November 18th, 2025, acknowledgement only. Item 4, Resolution 0126, Public Posting Area Designation. Item 5, Resolution 226, approving compensation for Mall Road Water Loop construction easements, $13,000 budgeted. Item 6, Resolution 0326, contract renewal with the car park for 2026 parking management services, $440,000, and item 7 has been removed. Do I have a motion to approve or any changes to the consent agenda?
Mayor, I'd ask that we remove item number 6 from the consent agenda regarding the renewal of the car park management service contract.
Item 6 is also removed. Any other changes?
No, I was just going to make a motion, Mayor.
Okay.
I'll move to pass the consent agenda with the exception of moving 6 to an action item and removal of 7.
I second the motion.
We can vote. Okay, items 1 to 5 in the consent agenda are passed. 7 is moved forward to another meeting. Item 6, we'll now consider Resolution 0326, contract renewal with the car park for 2026 parking management services. Trustee Eigel, do you want to make preliminary comments? Or,
I do. In our packet, there's no other information on this item, and when we talked about this last year, January 14th, we talked about a performance evaluation annually. We talked about getting public feedback back on this for our next discussion. So that is due tonight for us to make a decision on whether or not to renew this contract. I did not see that information, so I'm asking for that.
Manager Klein, do you want to talk about the performance evaluation process?
Yes, I can. Good evening, Dana Klein. I serve as your parking and transit manager. Happy New Year, Trustee Eigel. We did do 4 quarters or 3 quarters so far of evaluations of the car park. I did not have that in your packet. I didn't realize, I guess, that was going to be part of the packet, but I did do those evaluations with the car park each quarter, got those signed and signatured. The average of those on a scale of 1 to 5 was 3.13, where 3 is meets expectations.
Okay, I can go on. So this is a $440,000 expense that we're being asked to approve. And when we talked about this last year on January 14th, one of the things that we talked about was a performance evaluation that we would be able to review and consider when we discussed renewing this contract. It's a hot subject. Circumstances have changed, I think, in the last year. So we don't have that information, that the score out of 1 to 5 was a 3.1, and 3 being meets expectations. So without any public feedback, without any other information, for me, it begs a process question. From my perspective, the circumstances have changed each year. We are looking at the same program without any significant changes. This is the most expensive part of the paid parking program. And as we go through the year on processes, it seems with some town issues, there are a lot of different steps, a lot of different opportunities where the public can weigh in, or we can have a conversation about whether it's good for the community or not. So this is the most expensive step. So it seems logical to me that we would have an honest conversation about this subject tonight before we engage the car park for $440,000, because next month or the following month, if we ask a question or say, maybe we want to change the program, in my experience, the feedback that we get from the town staff or the system that puts together programs is that we're already $440,000 into this, and we'll lose that, or we'll lose the full advantage of that. So I'm raising that tonight to say, I have not reviewed the performance evaluation of this contract. That should have been provided to us according to what I reviewed with our meeting and in my notes from that meeting. So I was surprised not to see it. I think the circumstances have changed, and perception really as much the problem as finding a parking spot. So in my evaluating the data over the last year, it feels like we have a peak arrival and a perception problem that's created by paid parking through shorter stays, negative feelings, compressed demand windows. They're different factors, I think, than when we originally got involved in this as a way to improve the parking situation in Estes Park. The loop is complete. Timed entry at the park, both major changes that have been engineered to reduce congestion and problems. But we're going to stick with the same program and the same contract to move forward for another year. And if we go past tonight with a process that did not produce the evaluation that we asked for a year ago for us to review while we were talking about this decision, then we're locked into $440,000. So I would say, now I'm going to vote against this. And I would say a no vote on this is not against parking, but it is a reflection on the process. It's a complicated year-round process of approvals for projects. Parking, it goes on and every year, and it will continue to grow, and it will continue to advance. And we're not pausing to see if this is the right answer for our community, because it's going and growing and continuing to move. So I think that we have had a blip on the process part of this system. And if we don't stop and take a look at it, we're going to lose that opportunity, because then we'll have $400,000 of the community's money tied up, and that will be the reason to continue. So I would encourage my colleagues to take a hard look at the process, especially with things that happen year after year after year. We go through strategic plan, we go through budgeting, we go through the final approval, when most of the community thinks this is the final vote. Well, I often say to those folks, it's not the time to stand up and make the most noise. That is earlier in the process. Well, it is the first meeting of the year. We have not spent the money yet, and I would like to call for us to take a pause and review this program without having all that money spent. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Trustee Eigel. I more or less agree with you that we need to, it's not enough, I think. I appreciate the rating number, but that doesn't tell you much in the whole scheme of things in terms of, where are the strong points, where are the weak points, all of that. So I think the other thing is that it sort of integrates with some other decisions. We will be called upon under the parking plan at some point, I don't know exactly the process, as to whether we add areas of paid parking or not. We have a prospect of a parking garage on Bighorn that needs to be financed in some manner, that might be financed through parking revenues. So there are a lot, and then of course we had the dissolution of the Transit Advisory Board, and it's all kind of wrapped together. And I feel like we need to have a more thorough discussion about the future of the parking as well as the evaluation. So I would propose my point of view, and I'll make a motion at the appropriate time, that we defer this to our next meeting to give us an opportunity to assemble all that information and actually digest it. And keeping in mind that it's not just about the car park, although that's a major part of it. It's also about how does that whole thing fit within our future plans. So for instance, if we decide we're going to add areas in which we would have paid parking, will this contract have to be renegotiated? Will it cost us more at that point? I would anticipate maybe so, maybe not. I'm not sure. So I just think that we need to get a lot more information, as Trustee Eigel indicated, on this evaluation. I have no reason to think that we won't ultimately approve this, but I'd like to get that information before we're forced to vote on it.
Mayor Pro Tem Sinek.
So this comment really isn't about parking. Okay. It's more about, and I did not remember that comment in last January, but I do feel like whatever the topic is, if we have a trustee up here that wanted information, and was told we have certain reports by a certain time, and I don't remember it, right? But I can't see voting on this, and I would like to know if there's a time frame issue, okay? But I wouldn't see voting on that until that information is satisfied. And then you didn't remember either, it was just, good, that's fine. But is there a time frame issue with this contract? Like, do we I'm not saying it's haven't signed it by tomorrow, it's always these, but is there a time frame issue with having this be tabled for a meeting or two so that that information be satisfied?
From my standpoint, the car park is still actively working in town on a couple of, they have a couple of other locations, but, the amount that would be going to the general manager for supporting our program and helping me with information gathering and things and the data that goes with that. At the end of last year, I said, you can't do anything for me, stop. So, for instance, the vehicle that drives around and does the occupancy tests is not operating at this time because I don't have a contract. So we don't have insurance or anything with that vehicle. So that's, things like that. So right now they're at a full stop working for us. I'm not really even emailing them because, I don't want to violate that provision at this time.
And I'd get that, I understand that. I think that if I was a company that was maybe making 400,000 more from us, if somebody emailed me for information, I'd probably come up with the information. So I think no matter what the topic is, if it was something that one of the other trustees wanted, I would feel comfortable saying that I would table it for that, even if I was 100% for parking. So I would like to table it until we get some more information on the contract and maybe satisfy some of the questions that Trustee Eigel and Trustee Brown have.
One bit of information, what was the contract renewal price last year? For 2020?
Last year we did the contract renewal, it was just shy of 430,000.
Okay, so it's pretty close.
It is, and, of that amount, it's all what I call cost plus in a contract, so it's reimbursable expenses for things with the exception of the management fee, which is $3,500 a month with a $5,000 incentive option for 47. Everything else in that is, reimbursable expense recovery.
Okay, thanks. Trustee Hazelton.
Yeah, I think from a process perspective, my notes as well said, I think it was Bill actually who requested that we have a review and see that every year. So I think that's fair for us to consider that, especially since it's something that did come up. But I also saw in my notes that when this contract for the car park was one of our initial resolutions, and it came as a recommendation from an independent committee, which included, I think, from my notes, Chamber, TAB at the time, the police department. They reviewed all the submissions, gave the car park the highest score, and I think their cost was second to last, something to that effect, in terms of second to lowest, I should say. So, and from my understanding from reading it, my notes in the packet as well, is we awarded that 1-year contract with the option for 4 1-year renewals after that. So some of that work that I think's been referenced in comments has been done recently, as a year ago, where we had a committee select car park. So this is one of those options to renew based off of all of that work. So that said, I think I'm happy to table this. I think that was going to be my suggestion as well to the next meeting, so that we have an opportunity to look at that requested evaluation and have that as part of the packet. But I would like to vote on it and have it as an action item or a consent agenda item, depending on how we want to manage that at the January 27th, whatever day that is, 27th meeting.
Trustee Lancaster.
I'm pretty much on the same page. I was looking at my notes from that meeting. My notes say Trustee Eigel and Trustee Brown both had concerns we didn't do performance evaluation for the current provider. And Trustee Eigel wanted to table it last time until we got performance evaluation from Car Park. I'm splitting this into two different things. One is looking at the parking program itself. I have no problem with the parking program, the paid parking program. I think that's fine. But the performance of our contractor is a separate thing, whether we do whatever we do with paid parking. I think seeing how those performance numbers come out, and since the board did request it a year ago, and now we're in the same position right now and it didn't happen. I would rather see that information too before we move ahead.
Trustee Hazelton.
Sorry, can I just add too that I think the framework of that for me is, which it sounds like it's already in that, you've designed it this way, but my framework in that is this is staff's review and evaluation of our contractor and your recommendation. That's what I think I'd like to see. We are not the charged evaluators of our contractors, but we are in charge of how the funds are budgeted and assigned. So having that similarly to how we work with other contracts, that would be of interest to me is your assessment and evaluation and recommendation as staff. Thanks.
Trustee Brown.
Well, with that, I'd make a motion to table this item to our next meeting and request that Dana provide that information in advance of that meeting to give us an opportunity to review it.
Having raised the issue, I want to make a couple of clarifying points. In the conversation, it was that we would have a review of performance for a contractor, which seemed reasonable if we were going to be extending, initiating, continuing a contract, and I think that's reasonable now. One of the other things that we talked about was feedback from a survey of permit holders, I think, or the public, or so. I think that we need to take a look at how the contractor is performing in representing the community, that we are not the evaluators. As Trustee Hazelton, we're not trained for that. Are you trained for that? Are you trained to professionally evaluate a service? I'm not asking you the question, but rhetorically, I don't think we want to engage a firm to be an evaluator of this. I think we can look at the raw data. So I would like to ask that we are able to look at that raw data, to look at your candid review of that and what that's based on. What facts are you reviewing that? It's a $400,000 contract. I don't think it should be on a consent agenda. I think it should be at least, there should be a presentation as to how we're spending these funds. So I hope that additional clarification, and actually I would like to talk with you and meet with you in the meantime to have a better understanding of where we're going with this and how it's evaluated. Is that reasonable, Administrator Mahalik? I see the look on your face.
I guess my question is this more detail on the survey that was already conducted about the parking program? Is this a specific survey for?
My interpretation was the survey that went out to permit holders, but we don't have that information, I don't believe. In fact, I had to go dig for the contract because, I mean, we didn't have any information in this proposal tonight as far as the contract that we're voting on. We had the extension, but if you wanted to look at the details of the contract, that wasn't in here. The review wasn't in here. The survey information was not in here. So I raised a process issue, and the whole idea of paid parking is a separate important issue that we will discuss. But tonight it is about the process. So I appreciate your time and your attention to this. I think we can make a better decision with all the information.
Mayor, trustees, I do want to apologize. I have no recollection of that specific performance evaluation request accompanying this. That's on me. I apologize for the oversight. We will get that back at our next meeting with the information that the board's requested.
Trustee Hazel.
I just want to second Bill's motion since I think we just had a motion on the table and no second.
Additional comments? I will have some if no one else does. Hold your voting button.
I just want to thank Trustee Igo for bringing it up. I didn't go back and look at my minutes or my notes from that. And then when I did, I saw, oh, you're absolutely right there. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, we're just talking the process, not having a parking program overall, and that's good. I appreciated Trustee Hazelton bringing out the point of the multi-year renewal aspect. I think that's very important. You don't necessarily need to go through a rigorous search for a new firm every year or put out a request for proposals or whatever in a case like that. The fact that the price has changed almost nothing, percentage-wise, very little, I think is encouraging. I evaluate the parking contractor every time I come downtown. And I keep my ears open for commentary on every issue, including parking, and most of the concerns I hear are about other topics. At this bench, I do hear discussion every time the word parking is in the topic. We do get into discussions, in this case, process related to it. But because the price is almost identical, because we already vetted it in terms of multi-year renewal, and because of the fact that they are meeting the expectations, and that I personally have not heard or seen vast sums of problems, I saw more in 2024 than I did in 2025 and heard of more. I'd be in favor of renewal. That's obviously, from what I've heard from the board, unless I sway anybody, not going to happen. We're going to push this forward. I think when rating systems change to the meeting expectations in the middle of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scale, a lot of people who grew up generationally thinking A, B, C, D, F, all of a sudden, oh, that's a C. They got a C on everything. We better look around for somebody new. No, they're meeting expectations. They're doing what we want them to do, and they're doing it better, in my opinion, than they did in 2024. All that being said, any other comments, or we can go to a vote?
I can just tell you I'm a hard grader, so
Yeah.
that's part of it.
Yeah. Well,
I expect a
I
lot.
rated a lot of people with the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 scale with the meeting expectations. I'm very familiar, did it for decades. And a lot of people had a real hard time being told they were meeting expectations. They want to exceed. They want that A or A plus. Anyway, I see no other comments. We can go to a vote. The motion passes 6-1. Democracy in action. We'll look forward. I don't know whether, Travis, that's going to be in 2 weeks or 4 weeks, but or whatever the February Tuesday is. But we'll move forward. Thank you, Manager
So January
Klein.
20.
Is that what we're aiming for?
January 27th.
Yeah, good.
Yep.
Yeah, keep it moving.
Thanks.
And thanks. We'll move on to the next action item. It says number 1, but it's number 2 now. Ordinance 0126. Boy, this has a long title. An ordinance of the Town of Estes Park, Colorado, acting by and through its water activity enterprise, authorizing the execution and delivery of a second amendment to construction loan agreement. I feel like an auctioneer here. And a second amended construction loan note series 2022A and other documents related thereto in connection with rebuilding and improving the water distribution system of the former Prospect Mountain Water Company and declaring an emergency. Is that supposed to be on there? Oh, okay, all right. I read it into the record, and we have Director Zimmerman here to chat.
Good evening, Mayor and Trustees, Finance Director Tammy Zimmerman. I do have a slide presentation. It was included in the packets, but I'm requesting the approval of an emergency ordinance. And this is presented as an emergency ordinance because the approval is required before the standard 30-day waiting period expires. Bond counsel and co-bank attorneys have completed the process of rewriting the agreement to extend the maturity date. So this is requesting a second extension of the co-bank construction loan note of Series 2022A in support of the Prospect Mountain Water Reconstruction Project. And as you recall, this project was financed through a combination of grants and loans, and the 4.493 co-bank construction loan is intended to be refinanced through the USDA Rural Development Direct Loan Program, and that's upon substantial completion of the project. Unfortunately, a government shutdown and a prolonged closeout process with the construction contractor have delayed the finalization of the USDA funding. Our utilities and our finance teams have been working with the USDA, regional and national offices to resolve this. And order to avoid the risk of default, we are requesting an extension of the loan maturity from now, February 1st of 2026 to January 2027. And that is the last final date. We have gone through tax attorneys to make sure that this still qualifies as a tax-exempt loan financing. We hope not to go to 2027, but this will go on our books as a long-term liability instead of short-term, so it does look a little bit better for our financing. While this delay will result in additional interest costs to the property owners, the extension protects the town's credit worthiness and the successful completion of the project. And if there's any questions in regards to the project, we do have our utilities team in the audience, and I can hopefully answer some of the questions regarding the actual loan extension.
Estes has been a challenging one. I know the contractor, well, I'm very much up on the progress or lack thereof and the challenges and the leaks and various other things, so very aware. Trustee Igo.
You raised the issue, the consequence or the risk or the cost is an additional cost to property owners.
That's correct.
Can you quantify that?
So last time we brought this before you, the loan extension, and it was ending in August 1st of 2025. We extended it to February. We were getting, we were being charged about $20,000 a month in interest cost related to this loan. It is a variable interest rate. With the refinancing with the USDA, the hopes is obviously to go to that lower interest rate. That will be passed on to the property owners. There is an opportunity to hopefully get some of the grant funding to pay for some of the interest cost, but it will not pay for all of the additional interest cost.
So the speed bump that I see here is that the property owners are paying the price for where did the ball get dropped? Where did the delay occur? There have been a lot of delays, and who bears the responsibility for those delays? It's not the property owners?
Well, unfortunately, we had a government shutdown and we had some loan delays with restructuring of the national and regional offices. So we lost personnel with the new administration. So there has been delays on the federal government part, I would say. There has been some delays, obviously, with the construction, and I can't speak to all of those. But I wouldn't say that there's been a process that we have caused the delay ourselves.
So it is not the responsibility of the town of Estes Park that these additional expenses are being passed on to the property owners? That'd be the official word?
And I can bring up our utilities department to speak about the project.
Well, if it costs another nickel or $5,000 or $20,000 spread over all the property owners every month, as you can imagine, I have heard concern about the costs associated with and why is it taking so long. So I'm like at a sixth grade level on the water project, and I have watched the delays and I've paid attention to some of the technical details.
Yeah.
But what, yeah.
For a moment, this is a public hearing. We need to open the public hearing. That's how I notice in two different parts of my notes. So, hold that thought, and Jackie, hold that thought. I'll just read the requisite legalese at this hearing. The Board of Trustees shall consider the information presented during the public hearing from the town staff, public comment and written comments received on the item. Obviously, any member of the board may ask questions at any stage of the public hearing, which may be responded to at that time. We should have said this earlier. Public hearing is open. Do we want to rehear Director Zimmerman's presentation and Trustee Eigels, or are we comfortable that that can be absorbed into the public hearing?
Mayor, I think, well, we have a recording of it that is available to the public and each of us. I hear the attorney wants to weigh in.
Yes, I think all you have to do, Mayor, unless you want The finance director to repeat herself, which I don't think is necessary, just make a comment for the record that her comments are part of the public.
Your comments are part of the public record. Trustee Eigel, your questions and comments are part of the public record, and we will continue with the staff report, which Ms. Wesley is going to fill us in on some details.
Sure. I did, Jackie Wesley, project manager with utilities. I did not bring all my notes on exactly which dollars go where. So I will tell you that the contractor was supposed to reach substantial completion in April. Due to a number of issues, whether it's theirs, ours, or whoever's, there were a number of issues that put them beyond that April deadline. Then they were supposed to reach final completion by, I believe the date was in August. They have continuous performance issues with the tank. We are in the process of evaluating that with them. We're not going to assign who is responsible for that at this point because we have not fully evaluated the tank performance. As we work through the resolution of that, we'll be able to update you on more on how we resolve that issue. But they are substantially complete with the majority of the project and have been for a while. USDA historically has not allowed what we call partial substantial completion, which means you can say most of it's done, but not all of it. In this case, they made an exception for the town of Estes Park because it was a heavily grant-funded project. 10 million of this is from grant, 5 million roughly is from loan. So because it was upside down with so much grant, they went ahead and made that exception, and we were able to recently issue to the contractor substantial completion but for everything but the tank. So our only outstanding issue right now is continued seepage at the tank, and we will work through that with the contractor on how we resolve that seepage.
What's the potential, so what's the potential expense on this is in the number of months that we're going to add to what has already been settled and agreed upon? What's the additional amount of time? I'm trying to quantify the amount of money and the responsibility for that. If I was a property owner in the neighborhood, I would ask, why are we paying for someone else's mistake, and shouldn't they be responsible for this? I think it's a reasonable question, so I'm posing it to you in the meeting.
I would caution that we not find fault at this point until we fully investigate it, so not saying that it's a contractor's fault or the town's fault or anyone else's fault on the tank. We need to investigate that before we identify a fault.
So I appreciate that you would raise that that is something that's being discussed and you're considering or you're concerned about. And with that information, can you answer that question about the additional time frame, the additional months on this financing where expense will accrue? And then I'll give up the microphone. What's the additional time frame that we're being asked for?
So we're asking for an additional extension till January of 2027. Not that we will actually have to go out that far.
From what date? From what date to January 27?
So February 1st of 2026
Okay.
till January 20th of 2027.
10, 11 months maybe, okay.
So we hope that we don't have to go out that far.
Okay, thank you for the feedback.
We just don't have a closing date
Okay,
just yet.
thank you.
Other questions? Before we move on to other questions, I also want to open it for any person to have the opportunity to address the board concerning the item. Does anyone have a public comment to make about this particular item? I see no motion. We'll continue with any other trustee comments or questions. Any others? Town Clerk Office. Sarah, are any communications been received in regard to the item which are not in the board packet? Board of Trustees, one last shot. No other questions? All reports, statements, exhibits, and written communications presented will be accepted as part of the record. The public hearing is closed. And we can consider a motion.
I move for the approval of emergency ordinance 01-26.
Second?
Any other comments? We can vote. We'll go forth with it. Thank you, Director, and thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.
We will move to item Two on the action items. It's our third action item, actually. Ordinance 226, amending Section 120.020 of the Estes Park Municipal Code to ensure town penalties conform to state law. This is also a public hearing, and so the same commentary applies in preface that we'll hear all the information presented during the public hearing from the various parties, and you can ask questions at any time. This public hearing is open. We need a staff report. Is that, I think, Greg, you are going to provide in lieu of Dan Kramer?
Attorney Kramer, you have in your packet a memorandum regarding this ordinance. To state it succinctly, the Colorado Supreme Court last month had a ruling that basically said that any municipal fees that exceeded any cap on a similar action by the state, for instance, fee for speeding, was illegal, and that all municipalities and counties had to make sure that they didn't exceed any state cap. There's a 2021 state statute, 304 pages long. It says in the memo that goes through all kinds of different state fees, et cetera, over a wide variety of topics. What this recommendation by Town Attorney Kramer is to pass the ordinance, which basically states that municipal court, on a case-by-case basis, will have to evaluate whether the town fee that could be charged, a fine, could be charged, would violate this latest ruling by the Colorado Supreme Court. If so, then the cap would be the state fee, not the municipal ordinance. As you realize, in municipal ordinances, we can go up to $2,600 and I believe $15 in municipal a fine. Well, most of your state fees are way below that. But rather than going through and spending hours and hours, days, months, years, trying to figure out which individual fees we may be charging out of municipal court, this ordinance just says basically on a case-by-case basis, the judge and the prosecuting attorney will determine whether the cap applies. So bring in conformance with the recent decision of the Colorado Supreme Court and the state statute. And as Attorney Kramer states, this topic is going to be reviewed by cities and counties across the state, and hopefully in the future, somebody in those offices will look at a comprehensive list of those, and we can pirate those and bring them back to the court if necessary.
Well, thank you, Mr. White. It sounds like a simple and elegant solution to otherwise,
I think it is, yes.
Complex process.
I'd like to add that the Supreme Court's decision was unexpected by the Municipal Bar Association attorneys, et cetera.
Trustee Brown, you have your light on.
Yes, so I appreciate the approach as well. And you may or may not be able to answer this question, but, what if, will this then automatically change if the state changes its penalties, and how might it apply to a future penalty that doesn't exist today? Would that also apply in the future on anything that happens in the future?
Yes.
Okay.
If it falls into a category that the state has actually adopted a financial cap on failure to.
Even if they do it in the future?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Lancaster.
And I assume the legislature could address this at the next session and give municipalities and counties back the authority to do their own.
They could,
fees.
yes. Whether they will or not, I have no idea.
I'm sure CML and CCI will
Yes.
produce that, but that's another reason to do this, rather than go through all that work to change them all, when could be in just a few months, that would be all for naught.
I'll open this up to public comment also. Any individual wishing to make a public comment on this item? All right, other comments from board members or questions? Any other comments? Mr. White?
No.
Sarah, are there any communications that have been received in regard to this that are not in the packet?
No, there are not.
Okay, thank you. Lacking any further questions or discussion, all reports, statements, exhibits, written communications presented will be accepted as part of the record. The public hearing is closed, and we can entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve ordinance 02-26.
I second.
Any last discussion? We can vote. And it passes unanimously. Thank you, Greg. We'll move on to Resolution 0526, 6E, expenditure to fund tuition assistance through Estes Valley Investment in Childhood Success, EVIX, Family Resource Center, and Manager Bangs, you have the floor.
All right, good evening. All right, so you have seen these applications from EVIX on a pretty annual basis, if not more than annually, to fund the tuition assistance program that they have been, that has been stood up through EVIX since 2006 and has been serving our community for a very long time. It's a very adaptive and reactive local assistance program, and now more than ever, later in a couple slides, kind of see the importance and relevance of having these local 6E funding dollars. What we're looking at in your packet tonight is a request, $267,000 in awards, which is what EVIX projected in use of funds for low-income assistance. In our community, we budgeted up to $300,000 in funding when we presented the annual 6E funding plan for 2026. And so their projections are just shy of that $300,000 budget projection, but we do have that ready to go to meet that need. In addition to that, we also, in our annual funding plan, I made note that $150,000 is allocated to that middle income tuition assistance program. We'll be coming to you at the next meeting to discuss that need and what that looks like for 2026. And then we also allocated $50,000 toward school-age summer program assistance because we have seen kind of that change in need as the years have gone on here. So that's kind of what the budget projections were for funding and need for 2026. Again, EVIX's request in their application was for $267,000. I'm excited to be able to show you in your packet the assistance program description. A ton of work went into the policy that's before you, hopefully to answer a lot of the questions that have been lingering. We started this and we knew tuition assistance was going to be really important, funded it, and now we're really starting to demonstrate, guidelines and formalize some different processes. And so back in October, all of the individuals on your screen here sat down and really dug into what we needed in the policy, what we wanted to outline, how we wanted to look at the, parent fees, how does it coordinate with other programs in the region, middle income, all the stuff. And so we took a full 8-hour day and dug into it, and what you see in your packet is what came of that. And so really exciting to be where we're at and to be able to agree in a lot of ways on that policy. So this year, some things to highlight within that program description. It provides clarity for the administration of the assistance program, including just the general program structure, the eligibility, the qualifications, all that. It's all in print. And the application process, families can look at this document and know exactly what that should look like, the administration of awards, and then again, like I said, the calculation of parenting fees. And then the roles and responsibilities also of EVIX, as you notice in there, it has very clear reporting expectations, the data points that we're going to get year over year that we're going to be able to compare. I mean, again, we've been adapting and reacting the last couple of years, and I'm excited to be at the place where we are today with that. One thing worth highlighting, since, we're very proud of the work that we had within the description. And since then, we've also taken a minute to get some feedback from our FFN providers. Again, that was part of a big, robust conversation. And what's in that presentation tonight, we have the maximum reimbursement rates. And so that doesn't mean that everyone's going to be charging these amounts. It just means that that's the max that we would reimburse a provider. So if we have a provider that comes into town and all of a sudden decides that they're going to charge $200 a day for tuition, we would max out at these rates. So we're not going to just, pad the pockets of, providers with high tuition rates. When it comes to FFN providers, we don't actually have the data to demonstrate what the actual cost of care is, what it actually costs for an FFN provider. So we don't really have a framework to work off of. It's unprecedented, and we continue to work with other communities that are looking to address this in unique ways. But these numbers were agreed upon. EVIX went out to their FFN providers requesting some feedback, and the feedback was that those needed to be a little higher. The conversation that we had with EVIX and was relayed back to those providers is that what we're going to recommend is these are the rates for this year. Next year in January, when we look at renewal of this contract, we may be able to amend that and change those rates for FFN providers. Their feedback is incredibly valuable, and we're going to continue to gather that feedback through this year. But this is a good starting point, and it's better than nothing. We're providing assistance and hopefully helping families and providers meet that need. So just wanted to make note that that was something that came in just this last week, and we're like, do we pivot? I think we stay where we're at and continue to seek that feedback and coordination with other communities. So again, we had budgeted up to $300,000 for this tuition assistance program. We are looking for approval to distribute up to $300,000 this year. $200,000 would be distributed on the execution of the service contract this evening, or shortly after. We'd get that $200K out right away. And then summertime, we were looking at, what is the need? Is it the 67? Is it another 100K? As you know, heaven forbid there be consistency in CCAP or tuition assistance, but with, another freeze of funding kind of looming over us, that could kick people off of CCAP. And, how this language is presented, these funds could come in and support those families that would be, kicked off of any kind of programming like that. So we don't know if that's going to affect it. And then, of course, the 1B sales tax. We're working really closely with ECCLC, who would be administering those programs. We don't anticipate any changes this year in anything for 6E funding. They're going to work on bringing those funds in, and then kicking out some pilot programs this summer. So we're not pivoting quite yet, we don't know how that's going to impact these. So 200K tonight, and then we'll look at the additional funds up to $300,000. So again, we won't have to come back here and be like, can we get 10 more or 50 more grand? So that's our proposal at this time. EVIX is here to answer any questions that you might have about the program description, or if you have any other questions, I'm poised and ready.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah. So I know that the school has declining enrollment, and I know that this year preschool is bigger than last year's, or kindergarten is bigger than last year's kindergarten, or whatever. But what are they projecting for the enrollment? Is it still decreasing, or is it increasing? Because it seems like the money that we're doing for childcare, which is great, is going up, but the amount of kids are going down. Yeah. So just kind of wanted to address that.
Yeah, general trends in the elementary school enrollment continue to decline. Even though, as you mentioned, the kindergarten class is bigger than the first grade class right now, but their preschool enrollment, the universal preschool program, usually that opens up and it's, full in the first day, and there's still almost more than half available for universal preschool, which is a plug. If you have a 4-year-old, go sign up. So we're seeing general decline through the school, and then there are openings at childcare centers right now within our community. So there's a couple centers that have openings. So I think, again, another reason for us to distribute these funds and then analyze and see what that looks like moving forward, because there's a lot of places that these funds need to be able to plug in. So thank you for the question.
Trustee Youngland.
Yeah, and I think also Trustee Senek, having the federal funds frozen, the caps and things like that, I think affect, even though our enrollments are down too. We're having to help out more, in other words. One question I have, and I don't know, it might be for Root. When you're asking the FNN providers their feedback, I would also encourage documentation.
Yes.
We want to have documentation to back up these, the feedback that you're getting. And I figured you probably were, but I think it would be very helpful to have that, because I wouldn't have a clue what it would take right now to raise the small one.
Yeah.
That's basically what they're doing.
That was exactly our feedback. Was
Okay.
let's formalize this. Let's continue to get feedback on a regular basis throughout this year, and then compare it as we gather data from other communities too.
Okay.
Because you have a really robust group of FFN providers that are wanting to come online. Yeah. So
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I figured, but I just wanted to plug that. I definitely want documentation. So it just, it's something for us to evaluate.
Sure. Thank you.
Trustee Brown.
Do you want me to present my documentation?
Sure.
It's mostly some calculations on my part, and then some data that I received from one particular childcare provider we have, a home-based childcare provider who's licensed. But I had 4 licensed childcare providers, three of our 4 licensed childcare providers who are home-based. So this is not the YMCA and it's not Mountaintop, right? These are women that operate out of their homes, care for kids, but they also have licenses. And so I asked all 4 of them about their operating costs and how much their operating costs were due to maintenance of their licensure. So how much do you spend on a monthly basis, and how much of that would you say is to maintain your license? 3 of our 4 licensed childcare providers responded to me so far, saying that their regular operating costs, which are directly offset by what they're asking as a rate, right, would only slightly be less if they did not have a license. And so 2 of our home-based childcare providers are increasing their daily rates from $40 a day to $55 a day, starting in February, which maybe is another point to say in the contention of we have declining school enrollment. However, our childcare providers are raising their rates, and that's a good thing, right? We want this to be a more robust industry in our town.
That's the intended tuition assistance.
Exactly, yeah. And so we have that cap at $80, right? And we're sharing that with our providers. We're saying, hey, we'll reimburse as if you were charging this, right? So a lot of them are tentative and scared to raise their prices so quickly because they have people sending their kids to their childcare provider, like centers or their homes, right, that are not on our program or not on the middle income tuition assistance program either. And so these clients are going to be a little bit wary of them doubling their prices in a night, right? And so that's why it's kind of happening slowly, but with this tuition assistance program, we are encouraging this, right? So we're seeing this increase in tuition. I'm not seeing a decline in enrollment as far as people on our caseload for childcare tuition assistance either. And so we, this past month, just sent our numbers into the town, we had 46 kids, as opposed to, I think it was like 42 the month before. It was a slight increase, right? We added a couple extras. And so as far as the declining enrollment, I know that's not the question I was brought up here to answer. I just wanted to speak to it too. There are other parts in play to this picture, and that's why we're asking for what we're asking. That being said, the cost of care. So this is from our licensed home-based provider that sent me all the data. I was like, thank you so much for doing this. She says, I bring in $2,000 a month for 10 months. That's about 80 hours a month, including prep and with kids. $100 a month on supplies. It's hard to say as a home provider, things like toilet paper, extra electricity, water. I also have a lot of things for my own kids when I was a teacher, so probably it might be higher cost for others. I also only provide a snack. The kids bring their own lunches. So she estimates about $24 an hour before taxes. Okay? This doesn't take into account her annual PD classes and her time that she takes to take those. There really isn't any additional cost to being licensed once you are licensed. There are costs to get everything on the property up to standards, but to get licensed, but I don't think that's too much money to maintain it. Maybe some over the years, more wood chips, sand for outside surfaces. Most of the costs are startup costs like fire extinguishers, fence, first aid kits, and that was paid for by the county. She says startup cost for me was basically zero once I factored in the $1,000 bonus the county gave me if you don't count paying me for my time in the license classes. She was so thankful for the subsidy she got to receive her licensure. She was like, and so the FFN that we're currently worried about with the reimbursement cap charges $40 a day for her both toddler and pre-K, and $45 a day for her infants. She's providing snacks and lunch for the kids under her care. She charges the same as a licensed provider that gave the data above, right? And she works from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., 6 days a week, having up to 4 children under her care at a simultaneous time. Sometimes often she has infants. If our licensed child care provider says she's making $24 an hour, this one that gave us all the data, with the ability to bring in 8 kids simultaneously, whereas our FFNs can only have half that many simultaneously, you might imagine that she's making closer, and I was conservative with this, $15 to $20 an hour for what she charges. Now, if we reduce the amount she can charge by $5 per child, right, $10 if you're talking about pre-K, she's going to cut her earnings by 12.5%. That's an eighth of what she's making, right? And so it brings her earnings down to about $13 to $18 an hour instead. She can't stay in business, right? So this is back to this other provider. Thank you guys for your time in talking about this. I brought this because I think it's important. So to stay licensed, it really is only additional time for me. This is the provider talking that was sending me all the data. She's great. The annual PD classes and then paperwork to stay in good standing. So maybe a few extra hours a month on average to do that. So salary would be a little bit lower. And then the main advantage to being licensed is obviously to be able to have 6 or 8 kids as opposed to 4, so I can make more money that way. You also have to be licensed to do UPK, and that pays pretty well. I might also be unique in that I have 2 of my own kids, so I don't get paid for her children. Next year, I won't be paid for either of my 2 kids, so monthly income will be bound to around $1,500. But unlicensed providers should get the same reimbursement, or close at least. There should be other incentives to get licensed if that's the point, things like grants or something. The county paying for startup costs is amazing, she says. So I'm not asking for equal numbers across here. All I really am asking is a quick amendment. I don't know how quick it is because I don't know what the process is, but just $10 additional up the board on the FFN, and I think that would help our one FFN. And otherwise, we are so thankful for the MOU. We love the fact that you guys are giving us our fiscal year, requests, and we are so thankful for the additional allowances that are in there for emergency cases for families that weren't in before. So we've just been so thankful to Trustee, to Manager Bangs, and all of the work that the town staff did with us to help us create these documents.
Thanks, Trustee Brown.
Yeah, my questions relate to this schedule particularly. FCCH is the license exempt, right?
No, FCCH, I'm sorry, I should have wrote, that's a home provider. So FCCH stands for Family Child Care Home Provider.
Okay, but they're licensed providers,
yep.
right?
So center-based and FCCH are both licensed providers.
Right.
Those numbers are taken from our needs assessment and are based on the employees at the center getting paid cost of living. So that's how
Okay.
What it costs to serve one infant at a center is $100. So that's why we made that the max. We don't want people being reimbursed for more than what the actual cost is. We don't know how to calculate that in an FFN scenario.
Well, there's several things about this that confuse me. One is, why is FCCH $80 for pre-K and center-based 66. I presume center-based is based on their actual calculation of cost of care, but we may or may not have the data for FCCH.
No, so what's different about center-based and why it's tiered is because the ratio of staff to kid varies. Yep, and just the general operating costs to operate an infant room it costs more per infant to serve an infant than it does for pre-K. But when you're in a home, it's one home provider with the same number of kids, and so it's relatively the same between infant, toddler, pre-K, no matter the
So
age.
they don't have to provide more childcare providers in an FCCH,
It's a home provider would just be one woman or man at their home providing care within their home.
even though they could go beyond 4.
And they can go up to 8 typically, 6 to 8.
Okay,
An FFN provider is not licensed. They can only have 4 kids in their care at a time.
all right. Well, I'm a little troubled by the pre-K being higher for FCCH than it is for center-based, particularly when you don't have to increase staff or have your staffing any different one way or the other. But I don't know, there must be some reason for that, I guess. But if I understand this correctly, this will, regardless of whether we change these numbers, it's not going to affect, we're not going to end up paying more than 300,000 regardless.
I want to, there is
Unless we come back.
a program budget, and I think it's worth thinking about, how we're prioritizing the distribution of those funds. And if we want to distribute them to, families that are within licensed care and make sure that, families that are not on CCAP but are in licensed care are going to be able to receive those funds versus, looking at a rather small amount of children that would be under that FFN column. I do think it's worth having a conversation about. I feel like there's a lot more information that needs to be provided before we change those at this time.
So what are the actual rates compared to these numbers in each of these categories?
So center-based, the preschool ranges from 55 to,
So we've got the YMCA and Mountaintop. They're both charging $55 a day.
Okay.
With the exception of the YMCA in their toddler room, they're charging $65 a day. That's
again, these
center-based.
aren't
And they don't have
setting anyone's
infants at all,
tuition
do
rates.
they?
This is just
They're not licensed for
reimbursement.
infants, yeah.
And does Mountaintop have infants?
No,
No.
there isn't any infant centers.
So we really don't have any center-based infant, period, at this point.
And that's not something that I made up. That's something that's calculated
Right,
at a state
based on the
level.
staffing levels and everything. I get that. Okay, and then, so they're currently charging less than the max here, but the idea is we want them to be able to sustain their employees, and that may require more money going to them, and that's why a max can be greater than their current levels. But they're also constrained in the sense that they have to have the same rate for every kid, and if they can't get the full pay people at whatever rate they're charging, they've got a different problem.
A family home provider can charge whatever they want. They're just not going to
Okay.
be reimbursed beyond $80 a day.
Okay,
So they can charge, a home provider can charge $100 for an infant or $30 for an infant. We're just saying that we want this in the policy so that a provider can't come in expecting to be able to set a tuition rate at, some astronomical level, and then we're obligated to reimburse them.
no, I get that. Yeah,
Right, and so
for
that's,
sure, yeah.
since we have existing data for the actual cost of care for center-based and the home FCCH, that was easy for us to say this is the threshold, because this is what exists at statewide data. We don't have that standard for family, friends, and neighbors unlicensed providers, and so we came up with these numbers originally. We got amazing anecdotal information that I think should definitely contribute to a future conversation, but I think there's other policy conversations that need to happen with other communities or policies that are trying to address this issue.
So currently, last year, were we reimbursing FCCH and center-based only? Or isn't FFN new for reimbursement? No?
They've been reimbursing all of for center, for home, and for FFN.
Okay, all of them.
But just based on the tuition rates that they've had, and it hasn't been an issue because they haven't surpassed any of these thresholds.
Okay.
What they're saying is that there are some FFN providers that are charging more than the rates you're seeing there, and they want to increase the max.
No. Well, we want to increase the max, yes, because our FFM providers are charging a little bit more.
Right.
Than what's
You're not seeing that in the other two columns. You're seeing FFN providers charging more than $30 a day for a preschool age child.
Sure.
And we're saying, the policy as it's written is saying that we're only willing to reimburse up to 30. So they could charge 40, but the tuition assistance will only cover up to $30 of that care.
Got that. Yeah.
And I'm sure it does make a difference. It can make a difference to the provider. It can make a difference to the family that's seeking that care. And that's why I'm like, it's better than no assistance.
It is.
And I think that there's some more information that would need to go into that if we were going to get, because again, if they're charging $40 a day for unlicensed FFN care, that's really close to what our tuition rates are at Mountaintop or at, you know what I mean, at as they are now. So we would like to see those licensed providers increasing their tuition rates to get closer to cost of care, and us subsidizing that then to.
Well, is the effect of this, though, to drive customers away from FFNs and towards center-based and FCCH? Won't that differential have that impact?
That's not the impact of it. The entire long-term strategy of a tuition assistance program, including low income, but also including the middle income, is so that our providers are able to charge families as close to cost of care as possible, so that they're actually making the revenue and just not, taking a subsidized rate every time they serve somebody. So the overall long-term intention is for us to stabilize childcare by providing assistance and allowing them to charge higher tuition rates.
Okay, I may have some more questions later, but there are others.
So we're looking at an average, because there are obviously more kids, some kids have more than others, right? But an average of $500 per child per month of what the assistance would be. Give or take. And if we get closer to 300,000, we're looking at more like $600 per month. So I just want to make sure we're out loud saying that out loud kind of thing. I guess I would feel more comfortable kind of staying where we are and then seeing how we go. Doesn't mean we can't go up, but I think that the declining enrollment really does affect me, what numbers really are going to be. And so I think that you've done a lot of work with it both ways. And so I'd feel more comfortable staying where we are and not going up at this moment. I think it's a great thing that I think people do have to understand that, this is not, communities all over the world do not do this. And the taxpayers have granted us this gift. And so I think we have to take it very responsible. So I think that staying at it and looking at it and not coming back every month is a good thing. So I'm glad we're working out this program. But I'd be more comfortable staying where we are and then seeing how we go with the cap. So that's how I feel. But I think that we have to kind of put those numbers in and go, okay, we are basically averaging $500 to $600 per child that the taxpayers are giving for childcare. And I think that we have to be appreciative of that for sure.
And I understand Mayor Pro Tem Sinak's comments and Trustee Brown's comments, and the details of it. I'm never going to be the expert that you guys are in terms of managing the program. The important thing is when I moved up here and started working at the hospital, I started working there 21 years ago, and instantly workforce, housing, and child care were two of the most dramatic problems. This is back in 2005. where we've come in recent years and the maturity of this program, even in the 2 years while I've been sitting here, such a dramatic improvement. And so there's different pedals and dials that you have to turn as you're doing this. And I trust you guys to manage that. I think that it's really for us to say, what are we granting? But for me to get into that level of dial management, I have troubles with that. So I'm going to be supportive of this, incidentally, when we get to that point. Trustee Hazelton.
Yeah, I agree. My comment will be brief, and that's primarily because of how robust the packet information was. And I just want to commend everybody who was involved in that adorable photo for the program
Jason stole the
details.
show, yeah.
It was really cute. The program details, it's so thorough. It's exactly what we've been asking for. And in particular, the evaluation piece was really compelling to me because it gives us tangible, metric-based ways to look at, do we deem this a success or not? And I'm particularly interested in if the criteria changes as we get more information. Obviously, the information we get may change how we design the program, but I'm also interested in if the information we get helps us change the criteria as it evolves too. So in any event, it was really wonderful to read that. It feels much more black and white versus, and I don't mean this in like a derogatory way, but wishy-washy, you know, as we were trying to kind of figure out how things were gonna be managed. And I respect the request and to increase, and I'd like to stay where we are, primarily because and that's not to be dismissive of the feedback that you've already provided us, because I think I want to take that and compound it and aggregate it with the additional feedback we continue to get. And I think there will be time and room for that. But I really think you did a marvelous job, all of you, on this proposal. It was really thorough. I'm totally supportive of it as is. And I agree with Mayor Hall's comments about, you know, I think as a child-free person, friends with kids, so I hear a lot about it, but it's really, I depend on you to be the experts in this field. And it's very clear you guys have done a lot of work to make sure we're nailing, you know, these numbers, or at least getting close and having the right way to keep our data driving decisions moving forward. So thank you for all your work on this.
Trustee Brown.
I will be brief. I know that's important to you, Mayor. So I'm not sure I understood before, but we're paying currently $500 to $600 a month. So if there's 20 days of childcare in a month, which is probably about right, we're talking about a current rate of 25 to 30, right? Really what we're paying, average. So and we are reimbursing FFN kids as well, right? So this will not be a reduction for FFN. If anything, it'll still be an increase.
No, this is a reduction.
This is a reduction.
It's a reduction.
It is indeed.
And that's my concern, because the families that we are serving, we want to be responsive to their needs and the dynamic of our community, which is in the hospitality industry. And these providers are flexible and they can take care of kids weekends. So this is really a reduction on what we have been paying for the last 3 years with the 6E funding. So that's my only concern.
I'm just concerned about the math on this. I want to.
Well, and there's a lot of nuance that goes into, you know, number of kids and how they're being reimbursed and what that looks like. I think, again, we're getting into some nitty-gritty details that there's a lot of other communities, and even at a, you know, county-wide, looking at how they can support FFN providers, there's a lot of policy that I think we're going to be able to refer to. Again, we're one of the only communities that are looking at this and starting with any kind of numbers.
Right.
As far as a reimbursement rate goes. And I think if I could come back and have an offline conversation about how we got the, you know, the cost of care and all of that, but I am concerned about getting those FFN reimbursement rates too close to the licensed home childcare provider rates, because that does affect our long-term strategy and why we have tuition assistance in the way we do, to be able to create that sustainable.
Right, but my understanding is the FFN providers provide care at times that normally like a center-based would not be providing. So it will definitely be an important part of the ecosystem going forward, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Trustee Igo.
What was the reduction? What's the reduction that we're talking about? Because I agree with what you just said there, Trustee Brown, that these are flexible, dynamic, bad hours, terrible pay.
Absolutely.
That are filling a need that we have, although we just added a middle income assistance. And so I'm concerned about how we're allocating funds also, but it might be the other way than you're concerned. So I would like to know what the reduction was for our FFN providers. Is that a percentage or a dollar number?
So we walked through this with EVIX, and we agreed on these numbers up until we got feedback from a provider saying that there wasn't really a difference in operating costs. That's great feedback from a licensed provider that operated it as FFN, but I don't have the data to say what a true FFN reimbursement rate should be, to be able to say it's equal to a home provider. Every policy that's been written definitely says that there's a difference between someone who's unlicensed and caring for 4 children in their home versus what it costs to operate a licensed home as a licensed home center. That's why we encourage licensure. There's, and we do have, the incentive of once you become licensed, you get $1,000 on top of the county. So that was a new policy that was, or program that was presented this year. So we have long-term goals and intention that tuition assistance is critical to getting us to those end goals. We want to support FFN because we understand the critical role they play within our community. There's a balance in how we offset those costs and then could pull from some of our other long-term strategies.
So I hear you saying we want to, but we're not going to.
We want to, and it's not a priority in how it's being presented right now.
Okay, so I think we have to look at all the priorities and how we're spending money everywhere, for
And
sure.
I think including them in tuition assistance is already unprecedented across the state.
Which you are being lauded for as a trend-setting, innovative, I mean, Estes Park is being pat on the back pretty well, so that's good, but
We don't want to do it wrong.
we don't want to do it wrong, but we don't want to pay someone who is providing a very important service
Absolutely.
$12 or $15 an hour. I wouldn't do it from
Or
7 to 8.
what if someone comes in, again, we could play the what if game. And
Yeah,
that's
and I
why I'm
don't wanna
concerned
do that.
about moving forward without having.
Can you
data
answer the
in
question that I
policy.
asked you, which was, what was the reduction? What was this a year, what was the FFN provider a year ago?
We didn't have
this-
a max reimbursement rate up until this policy.
Okay, so that,
Can I jump in really quick?
I'm looking for answers, yes.
It's just what our FFM provider is currently charging right now to stay in business, that she has been charging in the last 3 years. And we have been reimbursing it. And I have used this reimbursement that we have been sending to her to project the request for the fiscal year funding for this coming year. I have used that as a part of this. She is charging $45 for an infant, $40 for a toddler, and $40 for pre-K. And so if we do this, we're going to reimburse her as if she were charging what you see here.
What is a licensed in-home provider charging?
Same thing. They're-
45, 40, and 40? And we're reimbursing 80, 80, and 80?
We're telling them that they can increase to that if they want, and we will still reimburse them. So what we're telling our FFN is she needs to reduce her costs to what you see here.
I don't think we're saying that. I want to be clear. We're not telling anyone that they should stay under these benchmarks. We're just saying that the assistance program will assist up to this amount.
So that was really important, what you just said. This is assistance.
Exactly.
This isn't completely funding. And I think that that's a critical part for a lot of our taxpayers who, I get kids, I understand the expenses with children, but I also understand that today it's not just because this is the way it is, that the government is paying for childcare. This is assistance, and it's not completely funding. So my concern is that we were overpaying providers above the rates that they were charging the families.
We're putting policy in place now so that there's a max, and so that we know that no matter what, no one's gonna come in and charge more than these rates that it actually costs to offer that care.
I think we might just be confused. What? So I think what's going on is maybe we're not really sure what these numbers mean, and it took me a little bit too. And here's what I understand. If I were charging $85 for an infant and I'm an FCCH, right? Then I have a copay calculated on the fact that I have $80 that I'm charging, right? And then I have my award calculated on that. And then the extra $5, right, that didn't get covered by either copay or award, either gets asked of the client, or I eat that cost as a business. That's my understanding of the cap.
Right, and we can say that the cap is $80 because we have the data to say that it costs $80 to serve that infant.
Right.
Because there's no regulation in FFN providers, we don't know why someone's charging $60 or $80 or $10. There's no regulation to identify what the actual cost is. We can say that we know for a fact that it costs $100 to serve an infant at a center, and we know that this is what that infant's gonna get. We know that they're gonna have this ratio of staff to kid, all of that. That's completely unregulated within the FFN world. We want to provide some level of assistance. This is what was suggested up until this week.
So
Pro Tem.
And I totally understood it about 2 seconds ago. Because when we use the word assistance, but then we're saying the cap is at 100 and it costs 100, that's not assistance, that's paying for it. So I want that kind of like maybe melded more in my head. But the other thing is, besides that, what I was going to talk about before that I brought that up, is that, you know, when we had this discussion before, we wanted to encourage licensed providers. There are even people on this board who didn't want to give assistance to unlicensed providers. I was not one of them. I thought we should. But we want to encourage licensure. So that's why I feel comfortable at this point. I'm saying we can't change. But that's why I feel comfortable at this point, because it does still encourage people to get licensed. And I think that's where we want that to go if we can. Like I can tell you, most people on the board were interested in licensures, or at least, and a lot of things have been taken care of, which made me feel much more comfortable. The CPR, the background checks that were not in the unlicensed. So that makes me feel so much more comfortable. So I really do appreciate that. But we still want to encourage them to get licensed. So if we're giving the same amount across the board, that's not encouraging anybody to do anything. But I do want to bring up the fact that we're not talking about assistance in some of these. We're talking about possibly, and I'm not saying we are, but possibly 100% reimbursement for some of these. If this is the cap. I'm not saying that happens, okay? I'm just saying if this is the cap, we are potentially saying that it's 100% reimbursement. And that's fine if that's what this board decides, but I want to make sure that we're all talking the same language. That's all.
Trustee Youngland.
So I'll just make a couple brief comments. So I think this is a good base, and I think getting more data to back up any changes, I think is how I foresee it. I would want to go that way. And it is an assistance. It's not 100%. I agree with Marie. I'm not sure why the center-based infant is 100 when it does cost 100. To me, then it's not a subsidy. It's a full ride. And then one other point is the licensed home care, the FCCH. They too can be flexible in their hours because they're doing it at home. So I like to encourage those FFNs to be licensed, because they still have that flexibility of working with those lodging employees that have, God forbid, hours. I know. You know, and there are rocks. We need those. So I'm okay with where we're at. I think we need some data to say, yeah, we're off base or we're on target. I think this is a good starting point. I feel, you know, if that FFN does need $5 more, that's her. I mean, that's part of a business decision. I either eat that $5 or I ask that of my client. You know, I mean, that's just a business decision that each individual has to make. So I'm okay with what's been presented. It sounds like you guys worked together and this is what you came up with. So I'm okay moving forward with that.
I want to go ahead and give an opportunity for the public also. We've been chatting on this for about an hour or so now with the trustees. Is there anyone who wants to make a public comment in regard to this? Okay, thanks. Trustee Hazelton?
I'm just ready to make a motion if that's appropriate.
I think so.
Thanks. I move for the approval of Resolution 05-26.
Second.
Further discussion? No further discussion. We will go to a vote. And it passes. Thank you, EVIX, for all you do. We will move on to Resolution 626, reservation of site location for the proposed Kahuna Memorial Wildlife Safety Park. And I've
Mr.
studied.
Mayor, I just want to indicate that I will recuse myself from this. I was involved with the Kahuna project at the outset, contributed money to them, so wanted to make the board aware of that.
Okay, thank you. So we have Director Kresia can talk to us about it. Give us a little history as well as current status, I guess.
Okay, I will try. Thank you, Mayor, trustees. So this is a site reservation for the Kahuna Memorial Wildlife Safety Park. And they seek reservation of a town-owned property to establish the memorial and educational park. This property is just west of Town Hall and Bound Park. You can see it up there surrounded by Virginia Park Lane and Elkhorn Avenue, sandwiched between Bond Park and that parking lot and those retail shops. It's not a big site. It's about 2,600 square feet, that turf area you see there outlined in the dash box. So this would be tonight's action, a second time this item has been before the board. Back in 23 in July, there was a town board study session. This proposal was put before the board and direction was given to move forward. A few months later, in October, reservation came before the board for 1 year for this property, and that was also approved. However, the project did not move forward as anticipated, so that reservation did expire. And so the proposal before you tonight is the project team, they continue to raise funds and finalize the design. And that design still does include the full-size statue of Kahuna, landscape and hardscape improvements, and the associated educational amenities. Due to the expiration of the previous reservation, they are requesting another 1-year reservation of the property. And if reserved, they will continue work to finalize the design and then submit that design to the town for evaluation through our public arts program. That program requires evaluation by town staff and then ultimate approval from the town board for any design. And ultimately, the town will retain ownership of the property, those improvements installed, and assume maintenance responsibilities. This is a current view of the property, 2023, looking west across the property. And if approved, this would be what the project team would like to install. Advantages, this would add to our inventory of art within town, would add an educational opportunity for the public for wildlife safety. It would also allow use of an underutilized area. Disadvantages revolve around cost. There would be long-term maintenance responsibilities for any art installation. Also potential for some upfront costs associated with the installation of hardscape or landscape amenities. And for impacts, right now there would be no impact with this reservation. The main purpose of this action for the project team would be to give them confidence to move forward with design and fundraising and to then submit those plans to the town for evaluation under our public arts program. Again, that installation would require evaluation by town staff and then approval from the town board. And so our recommendation tonight is approval of Resolution 0626 to reserve the property, and some sample motions are provided. Mayor, the project team here is available here tonight as well if there's any questions.
What percentage of the cost of the memorial has been raised in that 2+ years?
Mayor, if I could defer that to the project team, that's probably something they could provide.
Is there someone who has that information? How much progress have they made toward it?
Thanks, Steve. Hi, Mayor. Hopefully I'll be able to answer your questions. Hello, trustees. It's good to see you again.
Really quickly, could you state your name for the record?
Certainly. Elizabeth Clark. I'm a part of the Kahuna Memorial Committee. So the percentages, it's the Kahuna Memorial Program actually involves a variety of activity. It includes the Wildlife Safety Park that we're talking with you about, as well as engagement with the National Park Service. So many of the funds that initially was raised was put toward the National Park Safety Awareness Program elements. It's much lower cost, and we were able to move quickly with them, working with their specialties and everyone's guidance on their safety programs. We learned a lot that we're going to be able to lift and shift for this program. But where we stand right now is we need roughly another $150,000 to raise. We are in very promising conversations with some local sponsorship opportunities here. I'm not able to talk about those at this time. We couldn't align our meetings. I was hoping so, but we're not there. And that's why we're hoping that we can have this reservation for this year to get those conversations further down the road and get those commitments for the funds to be able to actually produce. We are ready with our educational elements. We have spoken with National Park Service as well as Colorado Parks and Wildlife. We have all those safety tips, and we've been able to be able to commonize all of that content to make it reasonable for a youth to some of us that are a little further down the road, so we understand them and what we can do. With that fundraising, we can actually go to work with the Foundry and get the art element that we want to donate to the town that will be able, that pull element. People will want to come and see. What happens when people come to Estes Park? They see the mountains, they want to know where the elk are. And so this gives us an opportunity to put a life-sized, safe elk in an area that we all know, elk love that area, that spot, they hang out there. But as Trustee Lancaster actually motivated us to think about, put a place, something in the sidewalk, let them stand there. That's what 75 feet looks like, because that piece of property enables us to give that true life-size distance.
If this were not extended, would the funding go toward looking to a different location, or would it be returned to the donors? Just curious.
Right, no, we certainly want to be good stewards of the donors that have come in, because we have a lot of money sitting there. Working with the Art Center as our fundraising partner, they are protecting those dollars. And we have in our charter as a committee, a variety of volunteers. We didn't know one another when we came together to do this. We have to honor that. So those answers would be, we would look for wildlife safety elements to that. our goal, we firmly believe, and especially with the recent designation of the Creative Arts District as part of the state of Colorado, this statue is being designed by a world-renowned wildlife artist. She's a native Coloradan, and she started her art career right here in Estes Park and in Rocky Mountain National Park. It's a beautiful story to tell, it's meaningful, and it's going to make a difference. It puts the town as a true steward towards safety
Now,
and public art.
if I were an elk, I would have liked that green picture with all the grass on there rather than the concrete, but
Well,
they're not
I'm all
voting
about
on
saving the
this,
trees.
so.
We would be bringing in new trees and working obviously with town to make sure that there's some beautiful
Yeah.
gardens. It's adding extra space for our visitors to sit and enjoy.
Mayor Pro Tem.
So just, when we first started talking about this.
Yes.
I'm pro, so just relax what I'm gonna say, but, when we first started talking about this, there were a number of people on the board that were saying that, every time we have an elk be killed, die, every time we have whatever, we're gonna have a statue put up somewhere. Okay, I don't think that's what this is.
That's right.
And I do think having a safety, Frank's talked about this, we talked about this at Business Park once before, about even at the, long time ago, we talked about it at the visitor center. Well, I think when you were, town administrator, we talked about that. But at the visitor center, having some kind of a distance thing to understand how close you are to these animals, and I think it was like a video that they were charging you or something like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I think that in Bond Park where people gather, is a wonderful idea. I mean, I love Sampson out,
Oh,
but,
absolutely.
this is different and this is an educational product and, but, in any case, I think it's a great idea. I do think that, what have we heard from Parks? Because Parks is gonna be probably maintaining this, I'm assuming. Have we heard any comment? 'Cause we used to have the Parks, advisory committee.
Yes.
So we'd hear these things, and we don't hear that now.
Yeah.
So, and I remember the last conversation we had when I was advisory, and that was about Parks, how they are basically, they have to take care of these statues and wash them, and so do we have any comments from the Parks?
Yeah, we will, and we've worked closely with Brian Berg, so he's in tune, he's got it, he knows what to do, and we've passed that information on with Steve as well, so we've been able to kind of bring us all into one fold. We will receive care instructions from the sculptor. She has a very serious process, it's very simple. I think we put an recommendation of about $500 a year. To take care of that white sea and caring for that. She's actually busy doing one for the 399 project in Yellowstone National Park at the moment. So there'll be a lot of learnings from that we can hopefully use here as well.
Trustee Youngland.
Couple questions. So, is there going to be any expense to the town for moving? Is there any utilities that have to be either moved, brought in, or what have you for this site, for this project?
I can lightly address that.
Okay.
Sure, Steve. Maybe we can tag team this, but we have had everything marked. We know where the water, we know where the sprinkler systems are, we know where the gas lines are. There are some utilities there, and so the area that we will have to closely look at, and that's where I don't have the answers, is where the actual statue will be placed on the north end side of the property. The way it is initially designed by our CSU experts and wonderful young staff, the team there, we were able to try to put those recommendations of design where it does not impede on the existing sprinkler systems. But if we go forward and the grass is removed and that pathway is put in there, then there probably would be something along with that related to that. There also is a utility box there that we're told the town does not, it's not really the town's, and we think it may be the one that's providing one landline in Estes Park. There's a lot of wires that are not connected to anything. They're pulled out and it's there. So we have a solution design-wise. We can try to cover with some greenery and some other things. It was recommended by CSU that we get it removed. So that will be something we'll need to resolve.
Okay. I was more concerned about the expense for the town.
Sure.
To continue with this. And have you, because this has been going on for quite a few years, and I was really excited about the education piece.
Yes, me too.
When it was brought to the prior board that I sat on. So that brings me to a question of, have you thought about doing this in phases? Because it seems like it's kind of stagnated. It hasn't, you haven't got those funds. We're going on 3 years, and I think the education piece to me is huge. And there's, if you have quite a few funds that you indicate you do, could it be possible that you do this in phases? It might be something that we'd be more apt to say, okay, well, if you could finally do something with it, then we'll move forward. But how many more times of renewing the this do we have to look at? So have you thought about phases?
Oh, you just made me very happy. We actually did. Initially, in part of our concepts, we had a phase 1 and phase 2. And so while things went stagnant in 24 for a variety of reasons, in addition to the property having a lot of construction equipment pulled up on it, we didn't know what shape it was going to be in by the end of all of that. We continued working. We didn't just go away. We didn't go to sleep on this, and that's why we are ready. We know what the requirements are for your waysides, and we have those designs ready to put in front of you for review. We've already put it through scientific review, so we know the information we have for safety tips for the variety, not just elk, but bear and mountain lion and coyotes. I think we said we would go and capture the most recent for wolves if you so choose to want to include them. So we are ready to move forward on the public education. We already have, as you know, you've seen them, the flyers that talk about Remember Kahuna, not as a memorial. We're not talking about a memorial. We're talking about wildlife safety initiative here. But you can use that acronym, the K and the A. Everything's your keep distance, avoid this. You know, it's all those pieces. And it's being well received. Lodging is using them during high peak seasons, especially in the springtime and in the fall during rut. They're using these safety cards. They're wanting them.
So when can you start phase 1 if we agree to this?
I could start tomorrow.
Okay.
I could start
sounds good.
tomorrow. We could meet, and I could have those designs in your hands.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Trustee Eigel.
Thank you for presenting tonight. I feel like a flashback, though, to when I remember this conversation some time ago on the outside of town board, remembering that it was a topic of conversation. The town board said, you can have this space. So I'm concerned about the process. I'm concerned that there was a window and the priority shifted to something else. That but we're asking for an extension. So something happened that the process, the time frame that the town board gave at the time was not respected, and ended up nothing has happened here. But there are other things that have been done. So in my mind, it's a matter of what is the priority of this organization? Is it to erect a memorial and from there work out? I understand that it's expanded, and that is actually my concern. What is the total cost of the project?
Let me speak to all of that for just a moment.
Oh, you
Okay,
bet.
so that way we're all on the same page.
Well, I haven't asked the question yet.
Go
What
right
is the
ahead.
total cost of the project?
$250,000 to do everything.
Okay, and it's $150,000 that you need additional funds.
To get, so we can do we do the statue, which is the pull factor to pull people in. So then we do all the interactive and engaging and tactile education elements that we're ready to move on now.
And the total cost of the project is at $250,000.
Correct, for everything that the Kahuna Memorial Program was going to do, which included, and we communicated that, just so you'll know, we communicated that our program is much more than just our wildlife safety.
I know, I've seen the positive impact.
Thank you.
And I appreciate it. I think that it's good. The concern that I have, and I hope that you'll agree with me, Ms. Clark, is that there was a time frame given by the town board to take action on this piece of property that has ended, and now we're looking for an extension of that. And my concern is that this time has already been given, so if we extend it, what happens if it doesn't happen in that time frame?
Then I think at this point, the committee would need to be able to come before the town and say, we may have a phase 1 option for you. It may not include this more higher ticket item, the sculpture piece for it, because we are able to produce quite a bit of the safety awareness elements. We are confident that having statue is going to be able to make the difference. We have brochures, we have websites.
I think that's your
We're doing
selling
this.
point.
We're
Yeah,
just
that's
looking for
what
that unique element,
Makes
right?
it a destination, I think, is is that opportunity.
That's right. This committee, again, we were a very disparate group. We didn't know one another. And we've determined that we just didn't have the right contacts with the deep pockets. I'm going to be very frank with you, right? It costs money to do beautiful public art. My rich uncle just hasn't been able to pull it up for us. So unless you guys know someone who can have set up a coffee for me to visit, because I will talk to anyone that wants to help support and do this.
I think there are a lot of things that we can put money into, whether it's my wallet or the town's wallet or your wallet or your uncle's. But the question we're being asked today is, will we extend the window to reserve this property for this project that has already been extended and has expired?
Right.
So that is the question that I'm dealing with right now.
Okay.
I would support the project. I'd give you money. But I want to support an organization that works within the confines that they're given and doesn't go outside of that. So I think you've answered all my questions. Thanks.
Thank you.
Trustee Hazelton.
Just a couple of brief comments. One, I just want to confirm at this point, we don't have any other plans or things that there's a pin in for that small area of land, correct?
That did come up during the original discussions. We reviewed it with the town executive leadership team, and it did not identify any specific uses beyond its current use as an open space.
Great, thanks. And then I believe this was in the packet as well, but just stating too that this, we have an art and public places process. There would be opportunities that this would come back before the board for us to discuss some of the things that we've talked about tonight, that it's not a go ahead completely on the project. It's just reserving the land for that fundraising piece, which brings me to my third point. I think there's maybe a little bit, I'll speak for myself. I think there's maybe sometimes just a little bit of a consternation about or concern about we've offered to reserve town land for a variety of for some projects lately. And, I think there might be some underlying concern about how often that may start to happen or if it happens at a higher frequency. And so I think that may be what some of us are thinking about. So at this point, I'm supportive of another extension, primarily because, I think it's kind of a no harm, no foul. We still have some opportunities to review the project when it comes before us. But I do think it's just worth understanding that just because the land owns a piece of property and somebody is interested in doing something on it, that we're probably not in the business of being able to hand out property left and right for reservation. So I think for me, that's where some of those feelings are coming from. So it's a great presentation, Elizabeth. I appreciate the additional information. And Steve, and I'll be supportive of this tonight.
Frank, I know you've got a question. At some point, I got to open to public comment too. I would like to see whether there's public comment and we can continue our Q&A. Your enthusiasm is very infectious, and incidentally. Are there other public comments to be made? We'll move forth. Trustee Lancaster.
Yeah, I understand where Trustee Hazelton's coming from. We have had some. I think the difference here is there isn't the opportunity cost that we're worried about in some of the others. Some of the other properties, we had some plans for, and we need them for some other things we're using them for. And to tie it up and losing that there's an opportunity cost there. I don't see us having anything to do with that. So it's kind of no harm, no foul. It's not that big a deal. It's not like we're going to be putting a recreation center or a parking lot on that piece of property or something, It's just, we don't have other plans for it. And that, to me, that differentiates it a lot from some of the others that we've looked at. That I had a little bit of consternation about tying up property that we need for other civic uses. And this is as good a use as any for parcel. It's only 2,600 square feet. Yeah, so there's not much we can do with it anyway.
Trustee Uggle.
What do you think is a reasonable time frame to get moving and submit plans and allow us to have that conversation? Kirby, you brought up a great point that by setting a time frame before and no action, and then we're extending it, I think we don't want to set a precedent, and we don't want to say, sure, just ask and we have land for every project. I like the tenets that this is founded on and the education that it has provided. I want to see something happen with it. I want to, I wonder if a 6-month extension would be a motivating factor for your organization to get the plans rolling. If you're ready to go tomorrow, or if you're ready to go on it, sometimes I need a deadline to get things done. I wonder if, I don't want to be counterproductive, but I don't think we just double the timeframe just to see how it goes.
So, plans, yes, because we have the plans. We need to run them by you once again. It has been reviewed during a study session very closely. We've had the video mock-up from CSU as well. And so once we get those approvals, then we can move forward to do the engineering elements, right? And I don't know what those timelines are for that. That's another committee member that could not be here this evening. I'm so sorry for that. However, I think when we visited and had a meeting last fall about this, we were looking at the year because we know that some of this funding, it's a very large amount of money that we're talking about, a significant sponsor from a single sponsor. So there's a lot that needs to work toward that. And so we need time. I cannot speak to their time. I just need to be ready and move the minute that we can get that commitment. We just recently received a $30,000 commitment. They're not writing the check today. If this goes through, if it's extended, and we know that this monument is going to be a part of that element, we have a $30,000 commitment. So
Well,
there's a few
I
of
want
those
to be
things.
supportive
So
and I want you to get it done.
we need
and,
time.
Yep, so.
But I'd love to be able to also express this delay that we experienced in 2025 has nothing to do with belief in it being a good program or our enthusiasm behind the support. It really comes down to business and having the right contacts to make it happen.
Okay.
And sometimes deadlines do help those contacts.
Well,
So I agree with you. But I would like you to say one more time.
All right.
If someone out there in TV land is interested in donating to this project, who they should contact.
Oh, thank you so much, trustees. First of all, we are aligned with the Estes Park Arts Center. They are our 501c3 arm for this program. And so they can contact the Art Center at that time. They can go to kahunamemorial.com. There's a hyperlink right there as well. They can always email and say, kind of speak with Elizabeth Clark. We'll take good care of them. But the Art Center, our memorial, or kahunamemorial.com, we'll get them there to that spot.
And if it's a 501c3, it's tax deductible?
Absolutely.
Okay, get that in there too.
Yeah, it's tax deductible.
It's that time of year.
It is tax deductible, yeah. It is, and,
All this being said, we have a trustee out of the room. Any final comments you want to make? I'm going to ask for a motion on this after trustee Hazelton gets back. Other comments over here?
Just have a motion.
We have another public comment that came in late? That came in as an email?
We had a comment at the
we had something.
dais. Yeah, that was provided to everyone. I assume everyone read it. It was also provided to us in email.
Yeah, I would actually like to have the clerk read that. I think the public ought to hear it.
It,
I mean, if Dr. Meisner wanted to present it for a public comment, it ought to be heard publicly.
as long as we can have some of the other comments that came in as well.
Well, the other ones are in the packet. They're
Okay,
available.
okay, good.
This one came in late,
yeah,
so,
this one came in late.
yeah, so
I'm fine with doing that, with reading it into the public record. It's not a public hearing, but there's no reason not to. It would be in the final conglomeration of stuff, but we can go ahead and read that in. Who's the right one to read that in? Should the town clerk do that, town attorney, or should I do that?
I would ask the town attorney to do that.
Okay.
Although I noticed that I am referenced in this letter.
Are you okay with reading it? or you
Yes,
want-
I'm okay.
Okay, go ahead.
This was submitted by John Meisner at 4:29 PM today. And you have a copy was available for all of you. Subject proposed quadruple monument and education center. I'm a 20-year citizen of Estes Park and a big wheel in my household. I know the hearing on this topic was scheduled a week ago, and other people were able to submit public comments in written form well before the deadline, but I am too disorganized to get my thoughts together when given a deadline that applies to lesser members of the community, and too important to show up in person when oral public comments are allowed, because I might risk having to come in contact with people who disagree with me, especially where the outcome is preordained. This graven image proposal before you this evening is ludicrous, not only because the name of the proposed statue is offensive to those familiar with the Hawaiian language, and the unwillingness to say the name, this is capitalized, YHWH, aloud, bracket, and this is not, contrary to supporters' beliefs, the ungulate's, quote, name. Animals do not have names, and any identification assigned by the animal's parents would not be pronounceable by human tongue, end of the quote. But because the whole proposal is more to glorify the proponent's feelings of self-worth and educate the public on how glorious and holier than thou they are. The project is supposed to be already be funded. Its lack of funding demonstrates a lack of enthusiasm in the community for another statue of a lifeless animal. Why would we worship images when we have the living, breathing, sinew and bone reality in the exact same vicinity? Future generations of archaeologists unearthing this crap will ask if we were members of some bizarre animal cult. Restore sanity, restore education on wildlife and fly fishing, and safe distances from gangrenous things like misguided humans with the best of moronic intentions to parents in schools and hunters' safety courses. Please enter this public record after the time for public comment has been closed. Bill Brown knows how to do this, and Greg White plays an attorney on TV if you need a second. Join the folks who self-imposed limits on fundraising are self-honored and be embarrassed to behave otherwise with their hands always extended in the give me posture.
Thanks. It's been entered into the public record, and thank you,
Thank you.
Trustee Lancaster, for reminding about that piece. Even though it's not a public hearing, this is now present in the public record. At this point, I think we can take a motion.
I move for the approval of Resolution 06-26.
I'll second it.
We can vote. The motion passes with 5 in favor, with 1 opposed, and with 1 abstention. That was the recusal, actually. And so the motion passes.
Thank you
have
very
the
much. We
extension.
appreciate it.
That is the last item of business on our agenda, unless any of the trustees or town administrator have anything else they want to mention to us. I think this session is now adjourned. Thank you.